Speak more on this. Let's now welcome SABC News politics editor Mzwandile Mbeje, who joins me in studio. Mzwai, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I want to start here. I mean, this is a big story coming out of the JSC, those interviews. 3 candidates are vying for the job. First, I would imagine, President Cyril Ramaphosa deviating and nominating those 3 judge presidents. So we now know that the JSC has recommended Judge President Dustin Mlambo. Just your thoughts around this particular announcement.
Well, thank you very much, Unati. And of course, we've just seen that news, but it's not the first time something similar to this happened. You remember when the first interviews or the interviews to appoint the Chief Justice happened. So that panel said and it recommended Justice Maya, and then the president went on and appointed then Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. So clearly this is a recommendation. So the decision is still with the president, and I suspect, though, he may go with this one. I mean, if you look at the presentation and the kind of role that Judge Mlambo has been playing, and the fact that he's been an invitee to the court a number of times, perhaps this one will pass. But as we sit here, JSC has recommended, the president has the final say.
Absolutely. All right, let's move now to the press conference that we saw held earlier on. Of course, MK Party Deputy President Dr. John Hlophe making a number of announcements. These, of course, follow those leaked letters that we saw on Tuesday that were addressed to Party President Jacob Zuma. Of course, a number of instability within the party itself, but let's focus on just the revelations and the announcements that were made today. What were your impressions?
I think the MK party realizes that in the past few days or even weeks, it has been under immense pressure for a number of reasons, not so good in the main. So, and I felt it needed to really come out very strongly and perhaps address some of these issues. I mean, I'm afraid we have not seen the end of perhaps these kinds of tensions, because clearly you could see that the leader of the party in Parliament, Dr. Hlophe, was asserting his authority alongside the newly appointed Chief Whip. That, you know what, we are in charge, this is the direction, these are the marching orders that we are giving. So going as far as to then deal with those elements which are actually disruptive. You remember that letter that was written by Dr. Hlophe to former President Zuma about the disruptive behavior of Ndlela and Duduzile Zuma. So clearly, those may not necessarily, we may not have seen the end of this, because I don't think they'll just sit and just relax. But what my impression was, Unati, was that the parliamentary team of the MK needed to stamp its authority, give direction, say this is where we're going. The big question is, outside of that parliamentary situation, what else is happening out there? I mean, we know that knives are out for Hlophe himself. So clearly it would be interesting. It would be interesting to watch in the coming days, perhaps even weeks after this.
And interestingly would be the leader of the party, the MKP, Jacob Zuma, and his reaction, Mzwai. I mean, he's been fairly quiet with these recent developments. What are we likely to see, particularly between the deputy president of the party as well as the president himself?
Interestingly, the deputy president of the party kept saying everything he was doing there. So the president of the party was well appraised of it, even saying those letters or that letter which had purported to say they don't want Colin. So he wasn't aware of it. He hadn't had receipt of it. So clearly, you would get a sense. You do get a sense that somehow the president of the party has been appraised of this. But again, you ask yourself, what about those influential, powerful individuals around the president? So what sort of next step? What is it that they're going to do? Remember, there is what you call National High Command that takes decisions. Something we saw that ended up happening with the removal of Floyd Shibambo from his position. Clearly, at some point, once that meeting happens, We'll be very much interested to see how it looks at these developments, how it expresses itself. Will it support the position that we are seeing in Parliament, or they will come with something quite different? And we've seen that of late, when it's the president of the party that is going to appear before the media, so it will be something drastic. So clearly at this stage, there is no sign that that meeting is happening.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the National High Command, if it feels there are issues to be communicated that are urgent, so it will do so.
When you consider the role of a chief whip and of the National Assembly, and this role, of course, for the MK party is Colleen Makubele. I mean, how does she then navigate this terrain now, especially, after that press conference, well, during the press conference, saying that, they do not want to discuss those leaked letters, that this matter is at a sensitive stage at this point in time. How difficult a role do you think she's going to be having now?
If indeed there is that view from perhaps some within the party, it may be a bit difficult. In fact, it may even deepen the divisions, because clearly those who may not be happy with her will probably resist one way or the other, or may not necessarily fully cooperate. So, but as I've said, it will really depend in the coming days on how the structure that runs MK, which is by and large, Unati, outside Parliament. Remember, they have something quite interesting. So those who are in the leadership of the party are not necessarily in Parliament, I think with the exception of one or two individuals, but many of them will be outside. So how will they express themselves on these matters? Are they in full support of what is happening? So if they are, clearly, then Dr. Hlophe would have asserted his full authority and alongside Colleen Makubele.
So I want you to pause a bit and I want to take this opportunity to welcome Bongani Mahlangu, political analyst, just to weigh in on some of these developments in the political space. Bongani, a very good afternoon to you. So, of course, I want to pose the same question to you in terms of just the press briefing that we saw earlier on, of course, from the MK party, the deputy president of the party, Dr. John Hlophe, announcing a number of changes in the whippery. Just your impressions about that particular press conference, especially given the recent developments of the leaked letters during the rounds, at least one of them dated June, but both letters directed to the party's leader, Jacob Zuma.
No, greetings to Nati and everyone in studio and also the viewers at home. So there's a profound statement that the former judge made, that the president of MKP said, do not be a crybaby, take decisions, be decisive. So with that being said, so the press briefing would be enacting or enactment of that statement, then him taking charge of Parliament as the leader of Parliament on behalf of the MK, and providing direction that is required, and also as damage control as well, because these letters came at the doorstep or soon after the Maibuye consultation was announced. And some of the things said there by Floyd repeatedly is that the organization is dysfunctional, it's family-led, and so forth and so on. And then that dysfunction seems to continue. So then they had to react and react quickly, and he had to react and be decisive and demonstrate that he's the deputy president and leader of MK in that parliament. And also had to bring then Colleen as well, because she was mentioned as well in one of the leaked communications that she is here and show some demonstration of strength, that she's here, she's still in charge, we are not removing her, and so forth and so on. So it was mainly damage control than any other thing, and it was him acting on the instruction again that was given to him by his supreme leader.
And of course, we're discussing a number of things here, also outside of the MK party. But just staying with this party, we understand, of course, there's going to be a high-level meeting that will be held sometime this week to discuss specifically the behaviors of Nhlamulo Ndlela as well as Duduzile Zuma. Just your impressions about particularly these two senior individuals and how Jacob Zuma is likely then to also, react and perhaps deal with just the repeated and the recurring complaints leveled against them.
Zuma, I think, currently is under pressure to deal with them, especially to the daughter, Duduzile, on the basis that, one, When Utuduzile went on X, or formerly known as Twitter, and made those rants, and if you read those rants, and even the action of making those rants was in direct contravention of the existing MK constitution, which dictates that, even though I forgot the sections, but her actions were an immediate expulsion from the party. It was said that the disciplinary committee of MK is processing her. Even to date, that we have not received outcomes of that disciplinary process. And instead, what happens is that she is still alleged to continue misbehaving in the party, and in this case and context within parliament, in deployment in the party. Then it comes to Ntlamulo. You would know that Utuduzile and Ntlamulo have a solid relationship. If you would go even from the post, the social media post of Utuduzile in previous months, and so there's even one particular post where he labels Ntlamulo with someone else as the president's man. So that means then Ntlamulo enjoys a certain privilege within that party, and that privilege could be because of his relation to Utuduzile, of which even Floyd said that Utuduzile enjoys a certain level of proximity to the leader of the party. So whoever else wants to enjoy some level of influence or proximity to the party must then be in some relation with Utuduzile, and then by extension, that would lead to the leader of the party. So they have been untouchables up until now, especially Utuduzile, who should have been expelled a long time ago, judging only by the constitution of MK. So it would be interesting that what the outcomes of this meeting will be, if there will be punitive action, and what, how significant would that or does punitive actions be?
I want to just hang on to that word, significant, Bongani, before I let you go, and just bring you to this breaking news that we are now seeing coming out of, Johannesburg Council. There it is on our screen, Margaret Arnold's re-elected as the Speaker. What can we make about developments within the Johannesburg Council? Of course, we've been seeing motions of no confidence being leveled against several high-profile individuals within the city council, including, of course, the mayor himself.
You would remember what the ANC would have said after the mayor survived and the chief whip survived. They said that they are not opposed to having Arnold's back in that hot seat in terms of leading legislature. So that means they have been committed to it. They would have lobbied and generated the necessary numbers to get elected or re-elected in this case and context. So it has been their position of which they communicated publicly. And what has happened today is basically the implementation of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bongani, for your time and, of course, your comments this afternoon. Just looking at various political stories. So I want to come back to you on that very last story. I mean, there's a lot of concern about whether or not we will finally see some form of stability within the city of Johannesburg, particularly as it relates to the mayor and the speaker position. What do we make then about, this development now?
Yeah. I think this was to be expected after the events of last week, because the Action SA really took a position which the ANC didn't like, because, I mean, you are working together with these people and then somehow you decide to sponsor or to say you're not going to support the mayor. And then, of course, then they went for the speaker. That's why we are in this situation. But given that we are in July and we are expecting the elections, if we are to go with the timetable of when they last happened, we expect them to be in November. So we are not far from the elections. I guess maybe this could be some sort of a bit of clarity in terms of going forward, because now you've just had these emotions of no confidence, and they've been defeated, or some of them there've been changes. I see perhaps the ANC in the main try and stabilize this situation. Why do I say that, Renati? Remember, the mayor has also already set up what is called a bomb squad. Yeah. So that is meant to assist him, obviously, and his executive to then deal with service delivery challenges in the city. And especially there's also pressure that as the city, we are going to be hosting the G20, we are going to be hosting the world leaders. So you've got to have a very properly functional town. So clearly, if then they maintain that spirit and the kind of the intervention that the president made, so perhaps this could somehow stabilize maybe until the next local government elections. But let's see. A day is a very long time in politics.
Absolutely. Mzwai, thank you so much for your time. Of course, that is SABC News politics editor Mzwandile Mbeje, and of course earlier on we had political analyst Bongani Mahlangu just weighing in on some of the political stories we are tracking for you this afternoon. Of course, that